You read the story, the answer obviously was yes.
With the cooperation of the United States Air Force, Life magazine conducted an exhaustive one-year study. Out of a number of conclusions, this one caught my eye. No power plant known or projected on Earth could account for the performance of these devices.
Dick Calderhose is a journalist and a qualified pilot. He saw what he believes to be a flying saucer.
The flight from Winnipeg to Vancouver in jet aircraft, we're fairly high, about 37,000 feet. Coming up in the mountains, just about sunset, this unexplained light or disc-shaped object was down in the darkness. Yeah. So I just happened to have a camera with me, and we took a picture.
In my opinion, I think they were worried that it would panic the public if they knew that someone had vehicles that had this kind of performance way back right after World War II, period of time. So they started telling lies about it.
Dr. J. Allen Hynek investigated UFOs for the United States Air Force for over 22 years. The most well-known of these investigations was Project Blue Book.
Where media is not...
In this 1979 interview, Dr. Hynek revealed why the Air Force changed its public position.
They were strongly guided by the CIA, because the CIA was not concerned so much with UFOs as they were with UFO reports. They were afraid, actually, that if another nation wanted to perpetrate another Pearl Harbor, that if their agents spawned a bunch of false flying saucer stories that might clog the military wires, as actually happened in 1952. So they devised the so-called Robertson panel, of which I was an associate member at the time. A very prestigious panel. I was one of the lower-ranking ones. They had Nobel Prize winners and whatnot on it. But at any rate, they handed down the dictum, which then became sort of the unwritten law of the Air Force: don't rock the boat, play it down, cool it, don't get the public excited.
What is your answer to the people who are sure there are spaceships and they say that you and the Air Force are in cahoots? Well, first of all, this business about being in cahoots is just simply a downright falsehood.
And I know, having been in Blue Book for nearly 20 years, that whenever an interesting case came up, the very last thing in the world they would do is to notify the media. And when the media themselves found out something, the Air Force did its best to play it down. It's called it a balloon, called it a star, called it...
Balloons, meteors, satellites, aircraft seen with the sun glinting off of them, and birds. Our critics continually charge that the United States Air Force is withholding information from the general public on this subject. This is absolutely untrue.
And there's nothing in the records which would indicate that we have been visited by any advanced civilization.
There's nothing to hide.
There's nothing to hide at all.
Good evening. Reports of flying saucers are nothing new.
When it got to the top of the trees, it stopped.
It looked like a round disc.
Residents of the area saw it. The police saw it. Sergeant Newell Schneider of the Sheriff's Office remembered it well enough to draw it.
What do you think it was?
Well, if they call it a flying saucer, that's what it is.
The Air Force sent its chief scientific consultant on UFOs, Professor J. Allen Hynek, to check the Michigan sightings.
A little bit of swamp light appears here. It goes out. Another one appears over here. That goes out. But the illusion, as viewed from a distance, is that the objects have moved back and forth.
The citizens of Michigan didn't buy it and asked then-Congressman Gerald Ford to investigate.
Mr. Ford, what about flying saucers? You've had some in Michigan in the past week. Do you really believe in flying saucers? You've called for a congressional investigation.
Dave, we've had several incidents in Michigan in the last week, incidents that many reliable, good citizens felt were sufficient to justify some action by our government, and not the kind of flippant answer that was given by the Air Force where they passed it off as a swamp gas.
Now, this is not an attack on the Air Force spokesman or the project spokesman. They are simply following orders to explain away all UFO sightings as quickly as possible when they become public and deny that UFOs really exist.
scientists were being misled, even as the public was being misled. And to this day, most scientists have no inkling of the serious hardcore evidence, because now it's all treated like a tabloid subject.
Are you sorry now that you did tell people what you saw? Yes, I am. I'm sorry, because not that it's not the truth, but it's just the idea, the reaction of the people. They think you're a nut. Tell you the truth, that's just what they figure you are. And I'm not going to take it no more. I don't want nobody down in here. I just leave me alone. And if the thing lands right there by that pump, I'd never say a word.
10 years ago, in 1969, they closed Blue Book, and I thought for a while that maybe this was finally going to be over. But since that time, we've had about 25,000 more UFO reports.
Many of the hundreds of people reporting the sightings believe they've all seen the same object.
It's called the Hudson Valley UFO.
Stop playing. I'm going to tell you something, honey. I don't know what the hell it is.
It moved in a very straight line, very slowly. There was absolutely no noise.
There was not a sound. And it moved smoothly, very smoothly, almost like it was floating. It was silent. It was hovering. I mean, airplanes can't hover.
Do you believe in UFOs?
Personally, no, sir.
How do you know that you're not being used? How do you know that you know the full story when you...
My name is Gary Tuckman with CNN, and this question's for the governor and Mr. Callahan. This really is a government that doesn't mind scaring us. We still have orange alerts and red alerts, and they scare us all the time. It keeps people in work. So I'm wondering why you think and you just state that that's the reason and that's it. Was that really the motivation for a government that doesn't mind scaring us?
If these phenomena are as technologically advanced as they appear to be, then one could say that we're completely vulnerable as a civilization. And that's, to some people, that might be horrifying. And I'm just speculating on that feeling of vulnerability. And so a lot of people like to say, well, you know, we're not vulnerable. That's just not true. That didn't happen. And they shut it out of their minds.
Because
Well, that's something. I know what
well, we could do a little round table introduction then, if you know, because you know, a few of us have only just met and things like that.
Yeah, we met today already. That extensively.
After the program last evening, they did the survey on the internet. And they asked people, do you believe in UFOs? What were the results? 75 or 80%? 83% said yes.
So you have a chance here.
You have a chance. We have an opening. Hey. You make it.
You guys are all here?
We were talking that.
Someone said to be here for 6:30.
I think 6:30 is the right time.
We've had a crate of
I got here, no one
wine.
was here yet, so I came back. The night before our big event at the National Press Club, we all met for dinner.
Certainly one of the people that I spoke to was a meteorological officer.
My dream was coming true. Here I was, surrounded by credible people who were about to share incredible stories.
So these are reliable witnesses.
Yeah. There were generals, pilots, physicists, an FAA official, an Air Force colonel. I'd never been in a room full of so many people of this caliber comfortably talking about the existence of UFOs. We were enjoying our time together. It was remarkable how everyone had something extraordinary in common. There was a mutual understanding, and I got some answers to some big questions. Why did the French government do what they did by releasing the UFO files just recently?
It took 15 years to convince to do something.
Despite the public position of the US government, somebody, whether it was on an official or a sort of back channel basis, but somebody most definitely was looking into the UFO phenomenon.
If you're not capable to identify whatever flies around, there is something wrong.
Could you say something very quickly? One of the things I always remember you talking about was when you'd be at a cocktail party and the subject would come up with UFOs, and you sat with one on the ground for 45 minutes and you'd bite your tongue. What was that like?
It was difficult.
But you know, in some ways there was some kind of satisfaction involved there. And they're talking about stuff, the what if. And I knew.